Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and also on the web at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from RCCA Media. They're going to be here for the entire hour as we have a very important show. We got Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, who also has a new title. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And then State Senator Julie Lassa will join us in part two. With that, we welcome the chairman of the Wood County Board and now is it a chairman or president of the County Boards Association?
It is president of the Wisconsin County
Mr. President.
And thank you very much for having me. It doesn't change a lot, other than when I go to a meeting, that's how I'm addressed.
Okay, well, you just came back. You had your installation as the new president. And so what was your inaugural message to the gathering?
Well, first of all, extremely honored to be selected for that position. And secondly, I think that's a reflection of what we do well in Wood County. So, I've relied on staff and colleagues here, and they often make you look good. And as a result of that, I probably ended up being president of the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I'm a little bit hoarse because for the last 3 days I've been the one doing all of the talking on stage. But from a general initiative standpoint, there's a number of them out there. And number one is to have all 72 counties involved and take advantage of all of the educational opportunities that we provide from the Wisconsin Counties Association. But specifically, it's got to be long-term funding solutions to infrastructure, both highways, how we maintain, how we build out, and then communication, broadband expansion. Two areas we lack in. Wisconsin used to be extremely proud of the roads we had in this state. And the latest survey shows we are third from the bottom in maintenance of roads nationwide. And that's because we've continued to kick the can down the road. In fact, Senator Lassa might touch on that later. Mm-hmm. We constantly bond for those. There is no way under the current funding mechanisms that we will ever catch up. There are some roads that are on a 100 to 200 year replacement schedule, and that just will not work. So through the work that I've been able to do with the Local Government Institute, where we put together a bunch of bipartisan or nonpartisan solutions, I'm hoping that the legislature will select a couple of those options and really get after this.
Well, do you have a preference, or does the Counties Association have a preference on how to attack this problem? Because you're right, it's not just an economic issue. Quite honestly, it gets into when you combine it with the whole country, it becomes a national security issue and a safety issue for the general public. So how do we go about doing this?
Well, it absolutely, it's an economic issue for sure, but it's definitely a safety issue. I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 14,000 bridges in the state, and we have 2,000 of those that are rated poor, where you can see rebar where chunks of the bridge are falling off. And both from a national security standpoint, if you have to get equipment there to defend something, that's an issue. For our agriculture industries and our trucking industries, certainly detrimental to their business, as sometimes they have to detour and take longer routes. That's extremely important. I don't know that I could speak for the whole Counties Association on this, but we have looked at, there's probably not a single solution. It's probably using a number of those. And some communities have done that already with wheel taxes. There's certainly vehicle miles traveled, which come from a rural area I'm not in favor of. Open road tolling, which I probably am in favor of. I'm not saying that's the county's position, but I think that's one that would work. There's been bantied about the ability for counties to use an additional 0.5% sales tax to fund road improvements without having to bond for those, and that would allow those visitors who come in, the tourists from other states, to help pay for the roads that they obviously have impact on. So I don't think it's going to be a single solution where you're going to come up with a couple of $1 billion, but I think if you use a combination of a number of those, we could probably get the problem solved.
And you've probably heard this line, well, we give the government more money, they'll just spend it on something else. How do, okay, we'll give you your 0.5%, but how do I know that 0.5% is going to go to infrastructure?
Carl, you don't. I mean, there are some guarantees that can be put in, but I really think you need to hold the state legislature's feet to the fire. Say this is an issue that's important. It's imperative we get it done, and you need to do it. I saw that the transportation developers the other day, they had out a button, and it was a little bit of a takeoff maybe on the Nike theme, but it says, just fix it. Again, nonpartisan,
Yeah.
Bipartisan if you want. We don't care how you do it, but just fix it. We got a problem in this state, and nobody likes to pay property taxes. They're the most regressive kind of tax there is, and that's why I hate putting it on the local property taxpayer as an item that we bond for. But at the end of the day, if your property taxes on a typical $100,000 house go up $2, and you hit one pothole and you have a $100 alignment bill that you're facing, I think the $2 might be well spent. But that's something that the legislature is really going to have to look at. They absolutely have to quit passing the buck, and we need a long-term solution.
You mentioned broadband, and that is, nationwide we're looking at that issue. This is, we got to bring in the rural communities to the new information technology economy. Is this going to take an effort like what the old RFD or the rural electrification was back in the days of the Great Depression? What?
It might, or the build out, of the interstate system.
Right.
But generally speaking, economic development occurs around those places where you have access to communication.
Right.
And the faster those speeds available, the more development you have. And many of those people that work out of the Chicago areas or Milwaukee areas would happily relocate up here because of lifestyle, affordable housing, and some of the other things that we can provide, recreational opportunities, but they don't have the ability to communicate quickly from everywhere. And, even I find it frustrating when I'm driving down a state highway or an interstate in our area and I don't even have cell phone coverage. And that's on the interstate. So, if we can't even build out the communication network versus, the rest of the broadband capabilities, we're going to have a problem long term. And I don't know how you mandate that. I don't know how you do it. But I certainly think that the state needs to be involved in that solution.
What about the overall relationship between the counties and the state? Do you have issues, or in your presidency, are there things you would like to address in terms of that general relationship between state government and county government?
I think the Counties Association probably has some of the best lobbyists in the capital, and they are some that are more listened to than many of the others because they have a measured approach to issues and typically don't take sides, that D or R after your name side. They look for solutions. We've been pretty lucky, or I have been pretty lucky in our board in this area. We have a very good relationship with our legislators. They are open to conversation. They return my calls when I call almost instantly. There are a number of places around the state where that never occurs. I'm amazed when I hear county board supervisors or especially county board chairs that say, my legislator never talks to me. If I would call Senator Lass's office, either she or somebody in the office would get back to me very quickly. Same thing with Representative Krug and the others in the area. Representative Vandermeer, whether it was, Amy Sue Vruwink as a representative in the past, no matter who it was, those people tend to get a hold of us pretty quickly. And we even had Ron Kind in the library the other day addressing some of the problems we're having with the rail issues and the block crossings. That's not only a federal issue, that's obviously one that's going to concern Senator Lassa too, because Portage County has the same problems we have over here in Wood County.
Well, since you brought that up, and that was something I wanted to bring up, the Congressman Kind was here. He met with folks over at talking about information technology. He met with folks at Solaris and took a tour of their facilities, and then also met with local officials like yourself to talk about this problem. Okay, obviously, based on the local court ruling in Wood County, it's a federal issue. So how are we going to address this?
Well, it's a major issue, and Congressman Kind was kind enough to meet with myself, Phil Eisvug, the Portage County Board Chair, our Sheriff Reichert, their Sheriff Lucas. It was a pretty small meeting in that room, and we expressed those concerns. We expressed the fact that we have cited the railroad for blocking those intersections. They're allowed to block those intersections for 10 minutes. They have blocked them for 10, 12, 14 hours at a time. They have told us to snake fire hoses under cars, to take gurneys between cars or underneath them.
Are you kidding?
The answers that we have gotten have been woefully inadequate as to how to solve those problems. And it becomes exceptionally frustrating when we have the rail capacity, the yard capacity in Stevens Point to park most of those trains. And there are federal laws that say a train crew can only go so far and they have to stop. Well, I think in the interest of public safety, if you weighed the option of going 5 more minutes or stopping there and blocking intersections for hours and hours, the better option would be to go the 5 minutes. It may take federal action, and my concern is the tickets that we can write, whether they were enforceable or not, are a few bucks in terms of the actual revenues that a railroad receives. But I almost hate to say this, but having cited them and having putting them on notice, if somebody dies or if there's a major catastrophe due to those trains blocking those intersections, and there's a lawsuit where you're going to get tried in front of, the peers within the county it occurs, you might have a different take on it when there's a, $50 or $100 million lawsuit. So short of that, and that's not what you like to threaten, Congressman Kine thought we need to get the Federal Rail Commission involved, which, by the way, locally we have called and talked to on many occasions. But we had the region manager from Chicago was also up at that meeting. And I can tell you, I don't think Congressman Kine was very pleased with the answers he received that day. He said, short of calling a congressional hearing on this, he needed some answers and needed them pretty quick. So I want to assure the people out there in our area that this is not something that we take lightly, and it's something that we have bent every year possible, and we will continue to do so.
I guess, and what it will require maybe from us is to keep writing your representatives, your congressional representative, whether it be if you're represented by Congressman Kind or another congressman in the area. Send them the letters. Send them to the senators, Senator Johnson, and our other
Senator Baldwin. Your congressman. I know this is on the radar of, like I said, Congressman Kind, certainly Congressman Duffy, and I'm sure some of the others, over in the eastern part of the state, Congressman Ribble, some of those. It's extremely important, and I'm going to morph this into another discussion too. One of the things that I find extremely frustrating, and I don't think there's probably another public official out there who responds as quickly to a letter or a phone call as I do. If you write me, call me, or email me, I will probably call you back within hours, and I'll certainly call you back that day. And the answer you get from me will be truthful. It might not be what you want to hear, but this is the important part, and I need everybody out there really to hear this. Right. If you're going to send me a letter, and it's an anonymous letter, I probably glance at it, and I'll be honest, it probably goes in the garbage. If you put your name on it, or an email address, or a mailing address, I will gladly respond. I will meet you. I will talk to you. I'll have you come up into the courthouse, or I'll meet you at a place of your convenience. We need to know what's going on, but I need to have a name with that. Those nameless accusations that come in, or nameless complaints, become somewhat worthless. Now, if I get 20 complaints on the same issue, you start to look into the problem possibly. But I think if you talk to anybody, there is, and you'll find this with the congressmen, with the state senators, the state representatives, there's no retribution. Nobody's after you. We just want to be able to sit down with those people, get the whole story, and maybe from the other aspect explain what's going on. So, when a congressman receives something that says, trains blocking my access, period, no name, no phone number.
They can't respond.
We can't respond to anybody.
Okay, yeah. So that's basic common decency, and you're right. I remember former Representative Schneider used to express his frustration. Anonymous phone calls, anonymous letters, or whatever. You can't respond if you don't know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, the door is always open, and the conversation is what makes things happen. And I had to do a presidential address the other day for the Wisconsin Counties Association. One of the things there were three things I talked about that I have learned since getting to government. The first one is that I am not always right out of the box. And my daughter, I saw her poke my wife in the shoulder and go, it doesn't seem to work that way at home. But that's one of the things you learn. The other thing you learn is that there are unintended consequences to many of the actions. Sometimes the public doesn't realize that we do something because we're fighting a war, not a battle. And sometimes when you can lay that out and explain the whole situation, it makes sense. So those are two of the things that are extremely important. And the third thing is, when you tug on one end of the string, the other end doesn't tend to come along. It's usually not a simple issue. It's more as if you're pulling on a spider web, and it shakes up a whole bunch of things. For instance, if we do something in the sheriff's department, it probably affects social services, probation and parole, the court system. There's a lot of moving parts to every issue, and I always appreciate the opportunity to sit down with those people and explain that.
Do you have any changes planned for the counties association that you'd like to see happen to make it more effective in your view, or some reforms, or do you like the way things are going right now?
It really is a premier organization, and it's recognized that way around the country by all the peers from the National Association of Counties. But one of the things we're rolling out this year is we installed a state-of-the-art media center in our offices in Madison. We know it's difficult sometimes for board members to get to Madison, or for the staff. There's only about 5 or 6 of them that really handle legislative issues to get around all 72 counties. So we have put in place the equipment and the ability to get live into your meetings via video conference, via audio. So we can appear whether it's 7 o'clock at night or 8 in the morning at your committee meeting live if you need that expertise from our lobbyist or our boots on the ground. And I can tell you, in the Capitol, there's nobody more respected than the 3, especially the 3 people we have on that legislative team, and that's Kyle Christensen, Dan Barr, and Sarah Dietrich Kastorf. And I know when Senator Lassa sits down, she would echo those exact same sentiments. So what we do well. We just have to get the message out there across the state.
And that is very important for your more rural counties, I would think. The ones that don't have the resources, say, that Wood County has.
Absolutely. And it's a long drive even for me to Madison. Round trip, it burns 4.5 hours out of the day just making the trip. If you're coming down from Douglas or Bayfield, Iron, pick Forest, Florence, pick any of those up there, it's a tremendously long trip. So using that technology, and again, we have to have the ability to use the technology. We might have it in Madison, but if we don't have the speeds to get those video conferences into the places we need to get them, we have a problem.
Is there enough equity, or are all the counties treated equal by state government in your view? Or are some counties carrying a little more influence than others?
I think that's a true statement, Carl, and I'll put it in this perspective. Counties are an administrative arm of state government. We do what they grant us the power to do in most cases. There are very few programs that are run independently and just by the county. And when you look at the way the population of the state plays out, you obviously have more legislators in the southeast corner of the state, maybe into Dane County. So politically, they may carry a little bit more weight because it's obviously population-based. So I think in some cases, especially if you look at some of the construction projects that occur in some of those areas, you'll find that's probably a true statement.
If you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're visiting with Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml, who is now the president of the Wisconsin Counties Association. And, going back to this relationship, I talked to you, just talked about it, and I talked to you before. But in terms of how they delegate programs or mandates to you, that's always going to be an issue, it seems to me. But is there any types of reforms or something different that could be done to improve, to have increase efficiency of services and give us more bang for our buck?
Sure. No more unfunded mandates. That's the simple answer.
Okay.
The other part of that answer is local control. And whether I'm dealing with some of the issues we've had in our area, whether I'm dealing with groundwater protection, whether I'm dealing with frac sand, whether I'm dealing with local roads, there are so many funding mechanisms and places that we have to go to derive the dollars to provide those services. I don't even know where they all come from. So the general public certainly doesn't know where they come from. I would like to see more block grant type dollars come to counties and have them decide how that money is going to be spent. And I can tell you this is a fact. The further government gets from the people, the less effective it is. Town government is probably more responsive than county government, which, conversely more responsive than state government. And then the feds are out there on a whole nother level. So local control would be number one in my book. Allow us to do that. We provide those services much more cost effectively than it is done from a distance.
Looking at Wood County as, budget time and the like, how are things working out? First off, the highway situation, Wood County's up talking about infrastructure. Wood County took bonding to update its infrastructure and roads and bridges it felt needed to be addressed right now. How's that going? How did that go this summer?
We did, Carl. We've done it 2 years in a row now, and Wood County has a borrowing capacity of in the neighborhood of $250 million, and we've been a county that's run virtually debt-free always. And we decided a couple of years ago that because of that crumbling infrastructure and no immediate help on the horizon from the state or federal government, that we needed to do something to address those businesses that operate within our county confines. We bonded in the neighborhood of $5 million each year. To do those improvements. We have taken care of the worst at this problem. And I think if you traveled the state, you'd find our roads are in better shape than many of the others. So the projects have gone well. I had a list of them last month. You probably noticed some of them as you have driven down those. You could probably roller skate on them right now. They're so smooth. But we're trying to bring ours up to snuff. And other counties are obviously trying to do the same thing through similar funding mechanisms. So I think generally that's going pretty well. The big issue for us going forward is probably mental health funding. And how
I was going to ask you about that.
A single case in the county can cost us $300,000, especially if it's a juvenile. You get 3 of those and you got $1 million hole to fill. I don't know why we have so many more issues, in that arena right now. I know there's a nationwide shortage of psychiatrists. Many of the places, including the VA, were doing it by teleconference or video conference. First of all, we need to plug that hole. We need to train more people. We need to license more people. I don't know what's caused that immediate need. I said I think you need to look at everything, and I've jokingly said things that people might not typically think of. Is it better diagnosis? And that certainly might be the issue. Is it an increase in drug use? That is, morphed into increased mental illness. I'm going to be ridiculous. I'm going to say this, and I do not want any teachers telling me. Is it 4-year-old is it pre-K? Is it 4-year-old kindergarten? Are we putting more stresses on young kids, instead of being home with the family? Are we creating stress at a younger age and doing that? Now that's probably ridiculous, but I think you need to look at everything as you pull that together and say, why do we have so many more cases? And then why is it so expensive to treat? But it is. I think
diagnosis is one of the things. There's also been an emphasis because of violent crime and everything else. There's another people are going, hey, how is it that someone who had mental issues got a gun? Yeah. And so, people are going, what are we doing about addressing mental health issues?
Right. And then and we tend to treat the symptom and not the underlying cause. And, it's like every other program. One of the things I think the state could do is take a look back at everything we do, especially within our social programs, and say, let's get back to the fundamentals. What do we need to do? What do we need to provide? And let's do that. Because everybody would agree there are people with there's people with mental challenges out there that need government help. There are probably other programs that are taking care of people that don't need that assistance. And there are jobs available. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in forever right now in Wisconsin and for the most part nationwide. And we need to get people trained for specific jobs and get them into the workforce. When we go to mental health, I'll quickly touch on this. We have the Norwood Health Facility up there, or the Northwood County Annex, as we refer to it now. And there have been some articles in the paper recently about some shortcomings that were found in a particular inspection. And and one of the things, again, I talk about the war, not the battle. When you have an inspector or inspectors come in, they're always going to find an issue or 2 issues.
Sure.
They're looking for issues. And I'm not saying we like to find them, but we welcome those inspections because it makes it better. But one of the things that I'm going to read this to you, on June 18th, the Norwood Health Center has been recognized by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid by receiving the highest possible overall rating of 5 stars nationwide. So this just came from them. Now, there are some issues that we need to address, but they're typically in how we maintain patient records. It's not in care, or where we hold those records within the facility. Again, it's the big picture, not the little one we look at. And I think sometimes we get caught up in gotcha instead of correcting the issue. And that's why when I talk about letters and address me, if we have a problem, put your name on it, talk to me, and tell me you want to meet with me, and I'll be glad to do that.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're here every month. And again, congratulations on your new office. And we look forward to talking to you about county issues as well as county issues from a state perspective during your term. How long is your term in office?
It's a 1-year term in office. It's a 4 or 5 year commitment because you start as a second vice president and go through, in effect, the past president's time. But I will probably be on that board for quite some time.
It means you could be doing a lot of traveling, I guess.
A lot of traveling this year, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I know you're very busy, so I'm going to let you get back to catching up. But again, we thank you for your time.
I always thank you for for the opportunity to be here with you, Carl.
Okay. Wood County Board Chairman Lance Pliml wrapping up part 1 of today's edition of the Morning Magazine. The Morning Magazine, as always, is brought to you on AM 1320 and WFHR.com by Comfort Air.